what I really want to get into is Keir Starmer. Another lack of judgment, another blunder, this time whilst on holiday in Madeira. Can you believe this? We really do have a hapless Prime Minister, don't we? Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Hello, Russell, and Happy New Year to you and Philip.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jonathan.
Happy New Year to you. So, where shall we start? I'm very, very keen to get to the Starmer toboggan incident, but let's talk about some slightly more serious stuff first of all. Channel migrant crossings surging, up by 25% in the last year. It seems that Starmer and Cooper, sounds like a really bad law firm, in fact, technically it is, they are, they don't really have a handle on the promises that they made to us in order to get elected, do they?
Not at this stage. It's a European problem. I'm uncertain at this stage, and probably all of the academics will be, about whether the rather benign conditions we've had for quite a lot of time in the Channel have anything.
You mean weather-wise?
Yeah. Or whether or not it is a reaction to the abandonment of the Rwandan policy that the Conservative government had. What we've got to do, of course, is to look for areas where we can cooperate with people. I suppose there are some good signs there. And the Times has reported something today which may be very interesting about the possibility of identifying potential people smugglers early on and putting restrictions on them. I'd be fascinated to see how that works. It looks like it's incredibly complicated.
Well, this is the announcement from Yvette Cooper in the Home Office today, isn't it? That Yvette Cooper seems to think that waving the magic wand of taking potential and suspected people smugglers off of TikTok and Instagram, that along with maybe confiscating their laptops and not allowing them to travel, will somehow stop this growing, and it is clearly from the data, this growing problem of illegal migration. But that really is for the birds, isn't it? Because that specifically only will apply to those that are in the UK. We don't have any jurisdiction in France or Italy or Greece or Turkey or Albania.
Indeed, and it'll be fascinating to see how it does work. And there's an awful lot to be done with social media and law enforcement people as well. So I think we've got to find out, as a European problem, how we could cooperate with other people and say, well, where are we processing to find out where the genuine cases of hardship and people who are applying for asylum should actually rest. Now, I'm completely befuddled why we can't have a processing centre out in France, for example.
But wouldn't that encourage lots more people, Jonathan, if they didn't even have to make the journey, which is basically the only barrier to getting here, the only kind of hardship element is having to brave that 13 miles straight across the English Channel. If they didn't even have to contend with that as an obstacle, I mean, we would see an even bigger influx. And the problem is, of course, in Britain, we grant nearly 70% of asylum applications. Even those applications come from people that reside in the likes of Vietnam and India and Albania.
I think that the counterbalance to that is the fact that Italy is looking at seeing if it can have a centre for processing outside Italy, and it faces a huge problem from North Africa. It's also paying the Libyan government an awful lot of money to be able to hold people there. So there are a variety of ways in which we can consider how we deal with this. And the other thing that I would do is, rather than just reaching for that lever that says, let's just leave the European Court of Convention of Human Rights, is just to say, actually, there are other countries who are interested in making changes, and should we do that? So hold on to the moral authority that that convention does give you in many respects, but also allows you to deal with people who are gaming the system to get over here. But Jonathan, to be done.
But Jonathan, that assumes that, I mean, the ECHR can't just be replaced by, let's say, a British Bill of Rights, which is something that Dominic Raab talked about years ago. As a consequence of that and other things, he was hounded out of office for being a bully. I mean, we don't need to be linked to anything European. I mean, we've already made our feelings known as a nation with regard to how we feel about Europe as a trading partner, and when it comes to Europe as being sovereign over our rules and regulations. We don't need Europe to tell us how to run our human rights, do we?
We're not suggesting that they are telling us how to run our human rights. What we're suggesting is actually you work in collaboration for a European-wide problem. So it is interesting to see if that would actually make a bit of a difference.
Well, look, we've already tried collaborating with France by giving them £500 million. That collaboration seemed rather costly and resulted in absolutely nout when it comes to success.
You're being a bit hard on the French there. I mean, they've got a very long coastline, and they are starting to. They are.
How have they helped us, Jonathan?
Quite odd.
How have they helped us?
I think we've got to be fair in this one, Russell. They are doing quite a lot.
Where's the value for money in that £500 million, Jonathan?
Well, the value for money is in understanding the links between organised crime throughout the whole of Europe. It's seeing that supply lines of vehicles, the boats are turning more and more difficult to change. But the other thing that we think we've got to look at here is the potential for us all to benefit from having a more coordinated policy. There's no easy answer to it. Absolutely, people who are desperate will, as you say, try to cross that last barrier.
Jonathan, I'm not convinced that coordination is the answer. I think it's prevention. Let's move on to another subject.
One last point we do have to mention, though, unintended consequences with the convention, Russell, would be how do we deal with all of the issues bound up in Northern Ireland? And that's a longer conversation. But
that's for another day. That's for another day. But yes, I don't deny that that's complex. Our police force, and I don't mean the rank and file, who I think are pretty downtrodden by the idiots that seem to run our police forces at a senior level, reported today that cops abandon 4 unsolved crimes every minute, a large percentage of crimes not even having a perpetrator associated to them, so no detection work being done. Across the country, of course, particularly when it comes to very serious crimes, particularly rape, our detection rate, the police detection rate, plummeting. What has happened to our police force, Jonathan?
I think there's been a number of factors here. First of all, austerity had quite a big impact because they cut back.
But we're back to the same level of police officers that we were 5-6 years ago. 147,000 police officers now.
Yeah, we are back to them, but actually we haven't made great strides. The other thing I would say is that I think there has been a failure of leadership. There have been too many chief constables who've not actually paid enough attention to the law and giving the lead that their officers need. Because I think we agree that actually one of the most reassuring signs is, I know it sounds like an old cliche and a hobby horse, but a bobby on a beat counts for an awful lot.
And we never see them. We never see them. Where I live, I only see them with blue lights on going to an incident, probably one that's been reported several hours previously. I don't see the police walking down Brentwood or Shenfield High Street, and I'm sure that whether you're in Chelmsford, Salisbury, Aylesbury, you would say the same. There is no deterrent. There are no police on the beat, even though we are back up to numbers. I agree that resource obviously is part of the problem, and that we should have another 20, 30 or even 40,000 police officers. I don't buy, by the way, the Labour edict today that this is all the fault of the Tories and the fact that there aren't enough police community support officers. I mean, they are what we used to refer to as plastic police officers. They have no power of arrest anyway. It's going wrong. I'm not convinced, though, entirely, Jonathan, that it's all a question of resource, because we are back up to those numbers. So where are the police hiding?
I think the police are stuck with an awful lot of bureaucracy. I think they're stuck with leaders who aren't as effective as they ought to be. And I think that we also have to accept that they are asked to do an awful lot of stuff beyond policing. You look at the fact that social care does leave an awful lot of people with mental health problems out on the streets, and the police are the people we look to try to solve some of those issues as well. We ask too much of them, there aren't enough of them, and we have to make those decisions at a level where people can say, this is where we want to see our money go, and where we want to see the proper effective use of the police service and the prison service and the criminal justice system.
I think what we both
prosecute more people more quickly.
Absolutely, we definitely agree on that. We also agree that leadership is the problem here, and I think once the police turn to their fixation that their leaders had to have, a degree in this and a master's degree in that, rather than the likes of our old friend Peter Blexley, for instance, being in a senior position, a good old-fashioned copper that knew how to police. We seem to have become a kind of, the police service has become almost an academic, woke establishment that doesn't seem to be particularly concerned about crime or indeed victims. Right, let's get on to the story here that I really want to talk about, just because it's a bit more light-hearted. Philip Ingram's laughing already. This is Keir Starmer on holiday. You know, the holiday he said he wouldn't go on because his brother sadly had died. Well, he did go on holiday 24 hours after that statement, by the way, but apparently decided with his family to rock up to into a queue that was a toboggan, one of these toboggans that goes down a hill, and it's all very exciting. Some people, including lots of Brits that then delighted in taking photographs and video, some of them have been queuing for 3 hours for this particular toboggan ride. Keir Starmer turns up with his family, with his police officers in tow, jumps to the front of the queue, and off he goes, having jumped in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. Now, this might not seem a big deal, but I think it is on the basis of yet another catastrophic lack of judgment. It's hardly man of the people stuff, Jonathan, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, it does beg a belief, really. Though I suppose the one thing, certainly, unless I've read the story incorrectly, Starmer himself didn't go on the toboggan, which is now world famous, and I'd never heard of it before yesterday. It's apparently a 2-kilometre long ride, which takes 10 minutes. So it's at least a little bit better if you're going to queue for 3 hours. And the idea, nonetheless, that you can go and jump the queue is wrong, when there's a much better thing to do, which is to say, look, kids, if you really want to go and do this, great, I'll pay for you. You go there, you queue, and by the way, a smart spin doctor would say, and we leak the story afterwards, saying Keir's learned lessons, so these kids know what's going on.
It's almost even worse that he didn't go on it. I mean, you know, at least otherwise he would have said, look, you know, for security purposes. Philip Ingram, I'm sure you have a comment on this.
Yeah, but, you know, Jonathan, this is symptomatic of a lot of things that are going wrong in government communications, full stop. You know, this is the latest, but we saw the cringe-worthy Christmas tree lights switch on outside Downing Street. We heard a very wooden New Year's speech. We'll go back to the last government. We had the Sunak debacle at D-Day. And then when it comes to the bigger issues, the government tends to react and is not proactive in any way in its communications and is always trying to play catch-up. And in this social media-enabled world, you can't put the genie back in the bottle again. You know, how do we fix it?
Well, I think you look for more political nous, actually, understanding the people and understanding the impact of what you do and recognising that it is scrutinised 24/7 relentlessly. And if you want the job, those are the conditions that you take them on nowadays. It's different to when I was in Downing Street and John Major, but there would always be that thought. Get back to your constituency, understand what people feel. And for example, when you're looking at the thing that begged belief, as far as I was concerned, you know, it's Keir Starmer having somebody buy his eyeglasses and buy his suits. You know, it's just not.
I mean, literally bad optics. Again, look, pun completely intended.
He made a complete spectacle of himself.
And so on and so on. Talking of political clowns, let's talk about Sadiq Khan. So he's now Sir Sadiq Khan, not that I'll be referring to him as such, because I don't think he deserves it. To be knighted for failure on the basis of him having presided over a huge increase in crime, particularly violent crime, an increasing housing crisis insofar as him only building about 20% of the homes that he promised, bankrupting TfL not once but twice, and taxing London motorists till the pipsqueak by way of ULEZ and the ULEZ extension. I mean, they are hardly successes, they're hardly accolades that really should be bestowed upon someone like Sadiq Khan in terms of a knighthood. But it seems, and again, I think this is a lack of political judgment, Sadiq Khan reveals that his children thinks that he's sold out and that he shouldn't have accepted the knighthood. Well, isn't it funny how his children seem to agree with most of the population of Britain?
Yeah, again, a complete lack of political nous. If you want to accept it quietly, with grace, and go up and enjoy yourself, talking to King Charles or maybe Prince William, and enjoy the garden party that you get invited to afterwards. But otherwise, no, keep quiet. Smells.
Oh, do you think we might have lost Jonathan for a second there? Philip, you agree with me, I think, I'm sure, that he's not worthy of such an honour.
Definitely.
But the other thing that I think is very, very interesting when it comes to this huge kind of smorgasbord of honours that Keir Starmer has bestowed upon his mates in the New Year's Honours list, which, yes, it's rubber-stamped by the King, but this is Keir Starmer's list. These are Labour politicians that in previous years, particularly when they were in sixth form, banging on about, you know, everyone being equal and, you know, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains, and all this Marxist gobbledygook. These would also be the same politicians that wanted to get rid of the House of Lords, that didn't like honours and thought it was for the elite. Isn't it funny how when someone like Sadiq Khan, who I'm sure we can find something somewhere where he in previous years has said, oh, you know, these honours things, you know, they're not for us ordinary working people, they're pompous. When it's suggested to him that he should have one, he duly accepts. Now, that is an absolute shining example of left-wing hypocrisy.
Oh, very much so. You know, the honour system is coordinated by the Cabinet Office. It is a politically driven system. The vast majority of those that get honours deserve them because they're people from within different communities who are doing fantastic things. But when you get to politicians, you get people in political levels and you get politically motivated honours, that's what undermines the whole system. And Sadiq Khan is a politically minded honour for failure.
Well, and let's not forget that the other Sir in the mix here is Sir Keir Starmer, who we've already referenced was a failure as the Director of Public Prosecutions. He's now definitely on his way to being probably the biggest failure as a Prime Minister that this country's ever seen. And yes, they get knighted and given peerages and Baron this and Dame that. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I think actually the honour system should only be for ordinary people that have gone above and beyond, that have worked all their lives in the pursuit of charitable exploits and so on. Definitely not for lifelong politicians and, you know, public sector civil servants that have just been in a job for a few years and get an honour as a consequence.